James Poen, I'm second generation. My father did not start the business, but my mother is from Dallas, my dad's from Iowa, and my dad was in the Navy, got engaged, and my dad moved to Dallas. Shortly after being in Dallas, he worked for a rental company, a small rental company. And then he started working for Richardson Saw Lawnmower in the early 1970s. Richardson Saw was part of a second store that was started in Garland, which was Garland Saw Lawnmower, and that store was started in 1945. The second store, Richardson Saw Lawnmower, was started by two friends, and they hired my dad as a manager. And so my dad managed that store for a number of years until he became a partner. So there were three partners in Garland Saw and Richardson Saw. My dad was one of them. And at some point in time, my dad bought him out. And after he bought him out, he sold the Garland store to my uncle. My uncle actually managed and ran that store on my mom's side. And so my uncle ran Garland Saw, my dad ran Richardson Saw. And from Richardson Saw, we were in a small little building, and the opportunity came available where we could purchase a new building. So we moved to a much larger operation, about a mile south of our location, staying in Richardson. And I was in college at the time, so that was in the late 80s. And my parents moved the whole operation there. And after that, it did very, very well in a bigger operation, bigger location. We were able to hire more people. Excuse me. So shortly after that, I was in college. I went to Texas Tech. I got married to my wife in 1998. And in 1998, I went to work for Florida Outdoor Power Equipment in Florida. And my parents came and visited me and asked me to purchase Richardson Saw from them, or they were going to put it on the market to sell. So my wife and I decided to move back to Dallas, and we acquired Richardson Saw at the end of 1999, at the beginning of 2000. My parents, it's funny because I'm almost following the exact path as my father in timing and age. My mom worked in the office, like my wife, Brenda, worked in the office. My dad ran all operations. I ran all operations. One part of the speech I didn't put in there is I grew up working in the lawnmower store. So from a very, very early age, I jokingly tell people I started when I was 10, but that's really the truth. When you're a kid, you're free labor.
Right.
It really did. You just did anything and everything, which meant you cleaned the bathrooms, you power washed the equipment, you built the equipment, anything a kid could do, take trash out, help people load lawnmowers. I just did all those things. It was a small business, maybe 8, no, not even 8. I bet it was 5 employees. My dad, my mom, myself, Leon, our mechanic, and then maybe one other person. It seemed like a really small group at the beginning. So, you always have that in the back of your mind. How do you sell a business? What's the best way to sell a business? So a business is different than, let's say, a car where that depreciates. A business, if ran properly, should appreciate and make you more money. So, of course, that's always in the back of my mind when I'm building a business on how to set the teams up, departmentalize. So we had to go through COVID, and like a lot of small businesses, or all businesses, but especially small businesses, COVID was really hard to navigate the waters of what to do. Do we close our doors? Do we operate outside? Do we lay people off? I mean, we had all these decisions to make. And of course, all the employees are coming to you, asking you questions. And of course, you don't know all the answers. And you're trying to instill confidence in them that everything's going to be okay. All the time in the back of your mind, you're like, is everything going to be okay? And lucky for us, everything was okay. We were in a financial position to ride the thing out. We own our own real estate. We didn't have any debt. So the vendors worked with us. The staff trusted in my wife, Brenda, and I to make sure that they were taken care of. We changed the business hours so that we could accommodate for cleaning. We could do different shift changes. So we just had to navigate through those waters. And I would say after COVID, it took a good year and a half to really get back on our feet with fulfillment, making sure we had parts, we had equipment to sell. We didn't really lose any staff, but we still had people that were out sick. Consumers were still slow to come into the store. So we got through that process, and then that was really hard on me as an owner because you were working so much, you were stressed out so much. I think that really aged me quickly. And then we had one of our best years ever. I mean, just knocked it out of the park. Don't really know why, but we just did. I think because people were staying home with COVID, and so people were doing more outdoor projects, and that was good for our type of business. And so we just kept having really good years, and I wasn't sure how many times I could duplicate that. So my wife and I started talking. Our son was finishing college. We bought a small ranch next to my parents, who are still alive. My dad's 89, and I started thinking about family a little bit more. I felt that I wanted to do something different, and my wife had a career before coming on board with Richardson Saw. And so she had an opportunity to take a job, something that she really wants to do. And so she got that opportunity. And so we both decided this is the best time. Our house is paid for, our properties are paid for, our son's out of college. Our parents are still alive. We're still young. Let's take advantage of this. So that was part of our decision making, and the fact that we had so many good years back to back. I knew that was going to look good on paper. So the first thing you do when you have a family business, the first thing you think about is your staff, right? I have staff that's been with me. I've got I've got two employees that they've been with me over 30 years, still work for us today. And then a lot of them been over 20 years. So your first thought is, who's going to take care of these people? They're part of your family. You see them more than you see your own family. You work with them 24/7, it feels like. So it was important that we had someone come in that had the financial means to keep the operation alive, someone that wasn't going to change our core values, someone that I could work with, because I knew that there'd be a transition period. We had started hiring a little bit younger staff and getting them prepared and trained to start replacing some of the older staff, because we also weren't sure when people were going to start retiring. When you have older staff like I do that been with you 25 and 30 years, I didn't want to see a massive exit. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure I had people coming in behind them. And one of the reasons we also wanted to exit is our industry. There is a lack of technicians. There's a lack of skilled laborers that do what we do. So you're seeing a whole generation retire, and the generation coming behind them doesn't have the same skill set, doesn't have the same work ethic. We see all this all the time, right, on TikTok, and we see people teasing Gen X and all these different things, where my generation, played outside all day, and today's generation is on their phones. But it's very true. I got to tell you, I grew up learning how to weld. My dad was in the Navy. He was raised on a farm, so he was very mechanical, very independent. You learn to work with your hands. You had to figure things out. There weren't apps, there weren't videos, there weren't do-it-yourself type of things out there like YouTube. So the generation coming up today, they really don't want to work the same hours. They just don't. Weekends became a challenge. A lot of these guys didn't want to work the weekends. So we had to alter our hours just to keep the younger staff there. And then again, when they go to school, they learn more about computers, software, applications. They don't know how to fix small engines. They don't know how to weld. A lot of these things coming out of school, they're not taught. Most of our workers are going to come from, I hate to say this, broken families, or they had a grandfather that taught them, or they didn't go to high school and they had to, start working at an early age. But our business has become so complex with all the computers and all the different software and technology that we're starting to see. You have to have these kind of people, but yes, you have to have these skilled laborers. So it's a real combination. You have to have two sets of people in your business. And now we're going to battery operated products, which is a different mechanic altogether. We got to interview about 3 different brokers. And when we met with Focus, we just liked what they had to say. The other 2 brokers didn't seem as prepared, as organized. They were local, which was surprising. They didn't think they could get us the same offer as what Focus was like, hey, we can get you this much more. And your first thing is, oh, that's a sales pitch. They're just trying to tell us they can get us more than the next guy. And what's funny, they hit it spot on. They really did. And so working with Anna and Barry was great because they were always available for a phone call. They're always available for a Zoom call. They kind of walked us through all the steps and the processes. They prepared us for the questions. You go through this whole process when you're building the sim. Everything they said and exactly what they said, how things were going to happen like they've done it a million times. And you could tell they had done it a million times because they were very strategic in the processes. We got to interview about three. So I was funny. I was telling I'm part of an entrepreneur group that I've been with. And I was telling them, if I was to sell a business today, I would, in my case, my wife works in the office with two other ladies. My wife does a fabulous job in managing the back end of the house. I probably would have brought in not that she wasn't skilled in this. For me, she was, but some sort of part-time CFO, COO that could help with some of the processes and reporting. Now, fortunately for me, my wife was able to handle it. But if I was a business and I didn't have that back end or support, I would bring in a COO or CFO or some type of back end person that at least 18 months prior to selling it to help you get your books in order, your reports in order, your processes in order. For us, we had all that. You know, we're 55-year-old business or better. So we had a lot of processes. I'm very OCD. My wife's OCD. So we're extremely organized. But if you're not organized, you've got to have someone that can manage that back end process because there's a lot of timing involved with getting paperwork back to Focus and Focus getting back it to the buyer. And you want to keep that communication flowing at all times. You don't want to be stalling because at first it starts slow, it picks up, gets real busy, starts slow, and then it gets really busy after that. So you have to make sure you're not traveling. You got to make sure you're in the moment. You got to make sure you're willing to work weekends to keep everything going, streamlining for all three parties.